The Drop Back with Sam Lewis, Matt Burns-Peak and Joe Costanzo.
And we're back with another episode of the Drop Back podcast. I'm Sam Lewis and I'm joined as ever by Joe Costanzo.
As ever and always.
And making a vaunted return, Matt Burns-Peak.
How's it going, fellas? A lovely victory Monday to be chatting to you two again.
It's a weird one, isn't it? It's a weird one.
It feels weird to win.
I just don't know. I mean, we'll probably get into it later, to be honest, but that was just a weird week. It was. You were very right with your predictions as well.
I was so on the money this week. It was,
which is how we can tell. That's how we can tell that it was a weird week.
Exactly.
Yeah, this has only happened twice. You were right, quite good with your predictions that other week, where it was just completely weird and all the teams that should have won lost.
But I'm a guru.
You're a vintage. I don't know what vintage you're.
I'm a vintage what?
You're I don't know, a wizard, a vintage wizard.
I'll take that.
A vintage wizard.
I don't know if the age of the wizard affects how good a wizard they are, but I mean, I guess vintage.
Well, it obviously
is
does. Like, a wiser wizard will be better at his job, I assume. He would have more time to learn spells and shit.
But don't they get, like, what happens if they start to get senile or start to forget their spells, Joe?
Yeah, but that's just a sad wizard.
Yeah, just like
if they were a good wizard, they'd have anti-aging spells.
I mean, maybe we can get into this later on when we talk about an aging wizard who's starting to forget his spells.
I think we're getting that on the app.
Nice, good link.
Nice.
Like that. But before we do get to that, let's go how we always start with Uniball again. And I think the biggest surprise of this week was Leeds Beckett falling at home to Sterling Klansman.
That is a
right.
big scalp for the Clansmen to take there, because Beckett have been really impressive so far this season. So I'm not going to lie, I had Beckett winning this one. So absolute kudos to Sterling. They came out and played fantastically well, and that's going to do their season a world of good.
Yeah, we were saying last week, me and Slew, that Beckett were in the contention. We thought for getting to a final, and just how they play the game and how they can sort of grind out the tough wins. But I think Sterling, like we said last week, great team, physical team, and they can't be taken light of any week, any competition they come against. So
I think so.
I think we will have to look at the game film for this one. But if I was to guess what happened, I'd say that Sterling probably got up early and took that run game away from Beckett a little bit. Again, I'd have to have a look at the film to see if that was actually the case. But looking at the scoreline, that is what I would guess has happened in this one.
I mean, one of the trends for this season so far that quite a lot of people have been sleeping on is how good the Sterling defense is, because they have got a fantastic record of turnovers, especially early in games. They typically start super, super fast, and they've been really impressive at taking the ball away from the oppos. So, don't sleep on the Sterling defense. They've shown it here against Beckett. They can handle the big boys as well.
don't be snoozing.
Don't be snoozing.
So, the other game in the Premiership North this week, Durham Saints went to joint top of the table, beating Coventry 18-0. Low scoring game, but you can with Durham Saints, their defence as well, as good as it has been. You wouldn't expect much less from them, especially with the Jets still yet to score a Premiership point, which we know they'll be disappointed with.
Yeah, I mean, Durham is another one of these teams that just seem to be quite complete in the way they go about it. They're really well balanced on defence, and they have the capacity there to smother teams. Their offence is possibly one of the most balanced though in the Premiership this year, in terms of the way their passing game with Matt Gallagher can get rolling, and they've also got some tremendous running backs as well. So Durham is another one of those teams that's just, they've got the attributes there that they can put a run together and they can dominate teams with that really well balanced roster. It's just about consistency for them, and I think they are now starting to show that they can consistently dominate and they can consistently control the clock and manipulate the game how they want it to go.
Is it a worry? You're saying how well Durham can play on both sides. They can run it, they can pass it. Is that going to be an issue with the Jets going forward? They had such success in the division below with their wing team run heavy concept. Is that going to be an issue if teams can start to game plan for that?
I think it could be. I think one of the main things that we see in the Prem, more so this year than I think than any other year, is the need to be balanced in terms of your offense. We've seen in the past teams dominate with a particular style. We've seen the Birmingham teams in the past dominate through the air. We've seen other teams go about it on the ground. We're now seeing, as the sort of quality increases throughout the divisions, that it's not enough to just be able to do one thing really, really well, because there is the capacity in those other rosters to be able to neutralize it. And there's the skill coaching wise to be able to game plan around it. So you do need to come with, not just a plan A, but a plan B, C, D as well. And I think Coventry, it's going to be a bit of an adjustment and learning curve for them to be able to get things rolling in other ways so that they can be more successful when teams do neutralize that run game.
That's a bit like the Leeds Beckett game as well, because as you were saying, like, people can kind of get into one mode, and we know Leeds Beckett are obviously a sort of like heavy run option team, but when it comes to facing just any Prem team, especially a team like Sterling, I know I'm going back on myself here, but it kind of links to what you said with the whole balanced game. Then you are just naturally going to be facing like bigger defensive linemen, for example, or just more athletically gifted players than you will in the lower down divisions. So it's just you need to switch it up. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, so one team that has proven they can do that as well are the UE Bullets in the south, demolishing the Hertfordshire Hurricanes 60-6.
Wow.
Away in Hertfordshire. And something's got to change for these Hurricanes this year. That's now 6 on the bounce they've lost, including last year's final. Joe, we spoke about this last week. Matt, you've done the most in-depth research on most of these teams. What do Hertfordshire need to do after Christmas to sort this out?
I mean, whenever I watch Hertfordshire, the main takeaways that I have is that their offense can't get the passing game going. They've really, really struggled with pass protection and with the chemistry between quarterback and receivers. And they've really, really struggled with penalties and individual errors. In that early game against UEA, there were some really big sort of howler moments that took the game away from them. And that one was a lot closer than this week. And consistently, they just seem to trip themselves up at vital moments in the game. It's all about those key moments in the game that can really help tilt the balance either way. At the moment, Hertfordshire are just killing themselves with penalties. There's so many, big plays that they've negated for themselves with holding penalties or blocks in the backs and silly, unavoidable things like that. They've really struggled to win the turnover battle. Their defense has played well at times, but for the playmakers that they have in that unit, they should be able to do better. But I think probably the main issue with that team is offense. They have the players to be able to really perform on offense, but at the moment I don't know if it's a schematic thing or it's a game plan thing, but it's just not clicking, and teams are taking advantage and getting up on them early.
Well, fortunately for the Hurricanes, they do only remain one win out of safety, out of the playoffs, and the UEA, they lost at home to the Birmingham Lions. The game was halted in the third after Cody Harris had to be ambulanced off the pitch. Thankfully, it was only a concussion, but still 15-0 down in the third. It's not looking great for the Pirates either.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, first and foremost, we wish Cody all the best and hope that he recovers well. No, thankfully, the injury, as we later found out, wasn't as serious as first feared, so that's really good news. With the Pirates, again, it's a bit of a strange one. It seems to be a bit of a chemistry issue again. I feel like, I don't know whether it's a factor of it being sort of early to mid-season and needing time to still gel and understand the playbook as a team. But again, they just seem to struggle to understand what they're meant to be doing and what their identity is. But luckily for them, that Hertfordshire is struggling even worse. It would be really interesting to see, which one of those teams does eventually drop down, and it's looking almost realistic at this point that we could see Hertfordshire, who were obviously in the final of the championship game last season and eventually fell to Leeds Beckett, but had a fantastic playoff run. It's not out of the question that we could see them getting relegated this season, which would be
fall from grace.
Definitely, and one that I don't know if we've actually seen, in recent years in Brit Ball.
Yeah.
Just to close it out, the Lions, after 5 weeks, the only unbeaten team still in the Premiership, and it just does show how close that division is. That they are the only team out of 10 of them that haven't yet suffered a loss.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we said this from the first time we saw Birmingham play this season with the Explosion event. They look so on it every time. Every game they seem so fired up and so, obsessed with winning. Their intensity is fantastic. Their team sort of camaraderie is fantastic. And
you've spent a lot of time pointing out how dominant their defense has been, and through 4 games only concede 10 points. It's pretty impressive in itself.
It's fantastic, and it all starts with their defensive line. Their defensive line is possibly the most star-studded defensive line that we've seen in the Prem this season. They've got people that can rush the passer and stop the run. They've got playmakers all across that front, and then their secondary has got some really fantastic corners as well, and they're really reaping the rewards of the havoc that the D-line creates. They've been able to latch onto those errant passes, and that's why they've done so well in the turnover game. But Birmingham, the physicality that they play with on offense, defense, and special teams is fantastic. They have such an intensity when you play them. When I feel like teams that play Birmingham know that they've been in a game, because they just bring so much passion and fire to the field. And I think that's a major reason why we've seen them as the only unbeaten team so far.
I kind of want to see UWE, the rematch for UWE versus the Lions again. That'll be an intriguing one down the line.
Well, do you know what the good news is, Joe?
I know they're going to play each other.
You will get to see that.
And also, I'm personally offended by the fact that you said a concussion wasn't a big injury, as a man who has suffered a concussion one time.
Yes, but
you're still suffering from it.
Yours was playing 11-a-side football, Joe, and it was because you missed a header.
Yeah, well, I went up for a header and misjudged the jump.
That is what Matt said.
Are you still concussed?
A little bit.
Okay, moving on. Back to your wizard conversation that lost his powers. What's going on with Tom Brady? Matt, Joe, any of you brave enough to call it dead and over?
I want Matt to say his opinion first, because it will probably be more controversial than mine.
Do I have to say an opinion, or can I just say how much I'm enjoying the fact that he's no longer as good as he looked earlier in the season? Or is that just a nothing cop-out?
It's a nothing cop-out, especially from you, who once proclaimed Tom Brady is better than Dan Marino.
Tom Brady's not better than Dan Marino. I
have video evidence of you saying differently.
That was
said it.
I'm fairly certain that was for a drink and not my actual opinions.
So all it took is the offer of one drink for you to say that Dan Marino isn't as good as Tom Brady?
Hey man,
when
that overdraft
Matt's an alcoholic.
They don't have to be mutually exclusive. But however, to the point, what's going on with Tom Brady? I think he's suffering from the fact that Patriots receiver core doesn't look convincing. I know when they made the move for Mohamed Sanu, we were all like, oh my God, that's a fantastic move, and Sanu could be a fantastic player for them, but it hasn't really worked yet. I don't know if it's a chemistry issue. I don't know if, what exactly the cause is, but to tell you what, Tom Brady looks like a man who misses Gronkowski a hell of a lot.
Yeah,
I think to double down on what you're saying about the receiver issue, I think that's absolutely right. They lack that explosive receiver that they would have had in Josh Gordon. There's no one on that team really you're seeing picking up a slant and taking it 70 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, more importantly, there's definitely some sort of communication issue. Did you see when Brady just lost his shit because Philip Dorsett was clearly supposed to run a double move? Wasn't where he was supposed to be. Probably would have been about a 40-50 yard gain while the game was still close. And it does appear afterwards that Brady's like, I'm done with him. I'm done.
Yeah, but he does that a lot.
He does. He is partial to the old temper tantrum, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I think Dorsett has been there a while now and should understand what the signals mean that he's being sent.
But also, you look at the start of the season and they had Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown at the start of the season as well. Who remembers that? Like you said, Gronk's gone. The O-line has been a bit shoddy at times this season, in particular, very not what we're used to with the Pats. Seem a bit undisciplined at times. I think it's more so just a sort of chemistry thing. Like you said, Sanu coming in, everyone's like, I don't believe that Brady is washed up. I think it's all going to somehow click together in the playoffs again. Because it's just so Patriots.
Yeah.
That I don't.
Is this just because we're afraid to call it dead when it does appear dead?
It's because he always does this, man. He'll have a couple of games where he wobbles, and then everyone will be like, "Oh, it's the end for Brady," and then I'll get really happy, and then he'll start playing well again, and they'll win another Super Bowl, and I can't.
Usually that is generally around September, October. This was the first weekend of December. this weekend. And then if you look at the three teams that he's played against the last three games, Houston, Dallas and Philadelphia, none of those have been great defensively this year. And he's averaging about a 50% completion rate.
Yeah, that's true. But Dallas was terrible weather conditions. You can't really count that game, really. Like, if we're saying, like, obviously, like, Jimmy G and Lamar Jackson had a 50% completion rating when the weather is terrible.
Yeah.
So
I'd say Dallas were the best out of those three defenses then if you're doing Houston and Philadelphia.
I'd also like to add that Aaron Rodgers just threw 4 touchdowns in the frickin' snow, Joe. So weather ain't no excuse.
Yeah, that's true. I also didn't realize.
I don't think anyone's ever compared Aaron Rodgers' arm to Tom Brady.
Very true. There was one point I think he was falling over and he just sort of slung it over his shoulder. I think it was to Aaron Williams or
Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Aaron Jones. Sorry, I always get them two mixed up.
It's all right.
They're both some bad men, but yeah. But back to the whole Brady scenario. I personally just, I think what we see in the Patriots right now is if the defense can't keep their opponents to under 20 or so points, then they might struggle. And obviously they've been kind of leaning on that a lot this year while they're still building the chemistry around these new receivers and old receivers leaving, new receivers coming in. So I don't know whether when the chemistry picks up, like if something will click by the time it gets to the playoffs. And I can't imagine that happening. But I do... It's intriguing because obviously when we were hyping the Patriots up with the defense, saying they're the best ever, best in the world, and then compare it to now, a few weeks later after they.
I mean, a few weeks later, yes, they conceded 4 touchdowns today, but let's be realistic. Deshaun Watson is a pretty good quarterback, and you can go back to that Baltimore game where he had a bit of a wobble, whatever the hell that was. But they conceded 4 passing touchdowns, but before that, they still had only conceded 4. All year. I think you can call this one a little bit of a one-off. And at the end of the day, the Patriots are still 10-2, as Brady was quick to point out in his post-match interview. They're not 2-10. They're probably still going to make the playoffs. The likelihood is they'll still have a bye.
Yeah, they're definitely still going to make the playoffs, mate. Unless they absolutely shit the bed.
I think it's more of a dominance thing.
They'll have a home game. I think you're right on that, Matt.
Because we're so used to the Patriots going into the playoffs being like with that scare factor of them being the Patriots, and I think that the vulnerability that they've shown over the last few weeks, especially in ways that we don't associate with the Patriots, we usually associate them with being not necessarily full of the big names, but the chemistry is so good, the understanding is so good, and the execution is so flawless, and those have been the things that have been missing for the last few weeks. So I think the manner in which they're sort of having this wobble is quite new. And I wonder if that's going to affect the way that we look at them going into the playoffs and the way they look at themselves going into the playoffs.
Yeah, but I do think the Pats are a different animal in the offseason. So
that is true.
It's not necessarily like I think they're a very beatable team right now, and I think you can look at it from compared to previous years and be like, this team does look beatable, but that defense is still amazing, like we said. And for me, I just think it's all going to click at some point, but
they'll be fine.
Although thanks to a big game at the weekend, the road to the Super Bowl may not go through Foxborough now. Ravens beating a close game against San Francisco 49ers, which I'm so hoping this is going to be a Super Bowl rematch because we deserve to see this game in good weather.
Yeah. 100%. I mean that's the one thing I thought is that it's such a shame that we had to deal with the, sliding around and drop balls and whatnot. But I thought this was a really tough game for both sides. I was impressed by both teams here. Like, as a Ravens fan, I was totally like edge of my seat thinking, God, we're going to lose. Like, we're just going to lose by a field goal, just negative Nancy and all that. But
you are a negative Nancy, famously.
I am indeed. But I think the Ravens showed a bit more of an identity in this game than the 49ers, I'd say. For instance, like if you look at some of the 4th down attempts, because there were plenty of them in this game, 4th and 1, what do we do? Sneak the ball. behind Marshall yonder, like one of the best run blockers in the league. And then 4th and 1 on the other side, the 49ers go for it, and they're despite the rushing success they've had on the day with Mostert, they were going in shotgun, trying to pass it out of shotgun. Like
they did get a big completion on 4th and 2 to Deebo Samuel though earlier in the game.
That really annoyed me. I was just like, what is Marcus Peters doing?
Peters is doing what Marcus Peters does. He's so aggressive, and most of the time it works out for him, but there will be those times.
He wasn't being aggressive. He was just sort of like watching him grab the ball out of the air. It's not like he whiffed on trying to grab the ball, like coming up for a big interception. That I'd kind of understand. I'd be like, fair enough, mate, you went for it and you missed. No, he was just sort of like watching him lackadaisically, and then as soon as Deebo Samuel's caught it, he just threw his arms out like, what? Like, what?
To be fair, this isn't really news with Marcus Peters. I feel like he's either going to give you a pick six or give up a touchdown. He's one of those boom or bust playmakers, isn't he, to be fair?
Oh, boom or bust. He's been really good for us the last few weeks, though, despite that.
He has.
Yeah. So, I ain't mad.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, another good game. Obviously, 4 or 5 rushing games with 100 plus rushing yards, which is incredible for a quarterback. But what you can say, the 49ers, they did a really impressive job, better than anyone has all year, at being able to bottle up your other running backs. Not other running backs. Wow, I can't believe I just said that. Your running backs.
The other running backs. What do you... How dare you?
Order.
Is he just a running back to you?
You've set him off, Slew.
I can't believe it. I can't... He's just another running back. He's going to use this as motivation.
You know what? If he's using this as motivation, that's fantastic. I hope he is.
Because it means that he's heard our podcast, and it means we're really getting on in the world.
Yeah, man. He's probably one of our 5 weekly listeners.
And counting.
No, but I think the thing is with these Ravens team is the games they've lost, this game was built for the Ravens to win. If you guys can keep it close, then there's a good chance you are going to win every game. It's when you have to start chasing the game. If they get up early and you have to move away from that ground game, much like Leeds Beckett, you could draw very many similarities between the two.
Nice.
But do you understand what I mean, though? If that game is close, then you're going to be able to run the ball and no one's going to consistently stop every running back that you have and your quarterback.
Yeah.
Whereas the games that you lost, there was that one to the Browns and the Chiefs, is they both got up early and you had to start chasing the game. You got away from what makes you so aggressive, so impressive this season.
Yeah.
And so I think the 49ers, the Chiefs, those are the teams that I would worry about if I were you. I'm not as worried if I were you about the Pats and the Texans.
Yeah.
But
no. Why would I be worried about the Texans? We just
I don't know why you'd be worried. Well, you smashed the Pats. You smashed the Pats as well, but you said, you're worried about the Patriots in the playoffs.
Well, I am a bit worried about the Patriots in the playoffs, but that's only natural seeing as they've won 6 bloody Super Bowls. Like, come on, man. No, but, I agree that, to be honest, it's very much, I think, in the latter half of this last 8-game stretch in particular, our defense has done absolute bits. So we've been statistically, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd best defense in the league in that stretch.
I think statistically, you've been doing bits.
Statistically, we have just been doing bits.
That is a stat.
Season. That's a stat for you, mate.
Number of bits per game. Can
I just get the one weekly mention of Lamar Jackson should win the MVP just in here right now? Just
go for it. 20 seconds, Joe. What have you got?
Lamar Jackson should win the MVP. That's all.
15 seconds left.
Oh, okay. Well, he rushed for over 100 yards. And it doesn't matter how much he threw. Because it was raining.
And that's time.
That's the least convincing argument I've heard for Lamar Jackson's MVP.
I was just I wanted to stop it on the one sentence.
He rushed for 100 yards, and it doesn't matter how much he threw because it was raining.
It was wet and stuff.
Worst argument ever.
Well, Jimmy G had a worse, pass completion percentage. So, yeah.
I don't disagree with Lamar.
I'm surprised you didn't finish that point with a nah.
And he only had one. This is his first fumble on the year as well.
No, it's his first fumble lost. He's fumbled 6 times.
Yeah, fumble lost. That's what I meant. Duh. Duh.
Well, do you remember those fumbles costing you last year in the playoffs against the Chargers?
Oh, stop bringing that
Slippy
up. It's
ball.
so last year.
Slippy ball syndrome.
Oh, remember the Chargers last year when Lamar didn't know how to throw the ball?
Or keep hold of the ball.
Yeah, but now he knows how to do everything. He's Houdini.
Yeah, I mean,
So on the
Trust.
49ers side of things, if they had to reach the Super Bowl again, they may even need to do it from a wild card spot. If the Seahawks win tonight, they also go 10-2, and they actually have the tiebreaker at the moment over the 49ers. So they'd be, I think, in the 1 or 2 seed behind the Saints.
Boom.
But the 49ers would slip down to that number 5 seed.
That's crazy, to be fair. But I think
it is
I think people have been sleeping on the Seahawks quite a lot. Obviously, they started the season unconvincingly, especially in that Bengals game. But the Seahawks have been actually low-key pretty fantastic this year, and Russell Wilson has been phenomenal. That's all I'm saying. That's all
I
I'm
thought you were
saying.
going to go. I thought you were going to go further with that.
That's
Nope,
a really
nope.
hot take. Russell Wilson's been good.
I need him to get precisely 2 points for me to win my fantasy matchup, so I'm feeling pretty positive.
Mate,
I came into this. I was fuming coming into this fantasy matchup. I didn't realise the playoffs started next week. I thought if I win this and I win next week, I'm in. But no, I'm out because I was already out. because
Slew is out.
Get wrecked.
I've had an absolute torrid week. I may lose in my other league, which could have pushed me out of the playoff rankings. I'm out of the playoffs in this one, and the Philadelphia Eagles decided they just can't be bothered.
Well, I've still got 5 players to play.
I'm still
All
top
from
of the league
tonight's
no matter
game.
what. So
You know. Well, you're top of the league.
yeah, I've been top of the league for the last 2 or 3 weeks, mate. I'm actually a fantasy god.
Oh, God. We can't all be 7-5.
I'm going for the three-peat, mate. This will be 3 titles in a row. Don't know if I've mentioned that yet, but I consistently win this fantasy league.
It's because it's rigged.
I refuse to
I
comment.
thought you were going to have some evidence or something.
No, it just
it's
is.
rigged.
It just is rigged. You know, like statistically, what are the chances of that happening?
Seeing as Slew's the commissioner, would he not rig it in his own favour?
No, because that'd
I'm
be too
just
obvious.
incompetent.
Yeah. Smart.
He's gonna split the dosh. All that money we
What
paid
gosh,
for.
there was no buy-in. No one agreed on anything.
Can we have a buy-in next year?
buy-in.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I think we should all pay some money for a trophy, and that goes around.
What?
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
ridiculous.
We were also meant, we were
ridiculous.
meant to be doing forfeits for the loser of the.
Yeah, but I don't think you
toilet
can do
bowl.
it once. I don't think you can do it once that bowl has been decided.
Yeah.
I think that had to be a pre-season thing. Anyway, so moving on to something else that should have been in the toilet bowl, but now is looking rather impressive under Brian Flores. Miami
yeah.
2020. You excited, Matt?
I am. I disagree with the toilet bowl comment profusely, but I am excited for next season. Indeed, Slew. We're going to be pretty decent, to be fair. And we've
7-9.
got a whole bucket of cap space. We've got another bucket full of draft picks, and we're just going to swing those buckets around all off season.
What? I wonder.
What the hell does that mean? Yeah.
It means we're going to get some cool free agents. We're going to get some hopefully good draft picks, and then we're going to win, I don't know, 8 games next season or something audacious like that. And then the year
So
after
basically, you're going to go exactly to where you were before this whole thing started.
yeah, but we'll do it with a younger team, and then the year after that, then we'll go for 10 wins, and then we'll sneak into the playoffs, and then the dynasty will properly begin.
Well, you've got 14 picks in the next draft.
Muchos picks, so many picks. I'm well excited for this draft. It's going to be so fun.
So with how good Fitzmagic's been, both on the field and as a leader, how do you feel about taking Tua, having him sit while he recovers from his injury, and then going with Fitzpatrick? Or would you rather take a Joe Burrow that's going to be the crowd's going to be pushing to play straight away?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult situation, I think, because the Dolphins, I think, have been so in on Tua, and then obviously this massive injury occurs, and at the same sort of point in time, there was all this talk about, is Joe Burrows actually playing better than Tua for LSU? And he has been, very impressive this season. And I think with the sort of, especially after this sort of season where it's been very much sort of promises, this team is going to go in the right direction, that we are going to get wins, wait till next season, we're accumulating everything for next season to be brilliant. I think it then becomes a tough decision to draft a quarterback and then not start them. which is why I think that the Dolphins are more likely at this point to. Well, I think it depends on what Tua's sort of how long he's going to be out for. If Tua's injury is something that he might be able to, maybe start next season, the early part of, maybe not quite there yet, but he'll be able to, take the starting role in week 6 or something or whatever. If it's that sort of situation, we might still see the Dolphins go with Tua. If it's going to be a situation where he's going to be missing significant time next season as well, I think they're going to pull the trigger on Burrows and try and maybe trade it, maybe try and trade down and pick up a Burrows and see if they could get more draft capital.
But do you think Burrows is going to fall that low?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Do you think you'd be able to?
Because I think he's probably going to go 1 or 2, I imagine, and I don't even think you're going to have the number 2 pick in the draft.
Well, they might. It seems everyone's trying to win. The Bengals and the Redskins also won this week.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on.
And I think the situation is as well, outside of the Bengals, the other teams that have really struggled this season, not a lot of them are going to be looking for quarterbacks. Washington have just pulled the trigger on Haskins last season. That's going to be something that that's not an easy investment to walk away from. I think as well the Jets are still certain that Sam Darnold's the answer at QB for better or worse, so they're not necessarily going to be looking for a QB in this draft. I think the Bengals will be for sure, although it was nice to see them go back to the Ginger Prince this weekend. But I don't know if there's that many people in that sort of space that are going to be vying with Miami for a starting quarterback yet. I mean, and you also don't know what the market's going to throw up as well.
I think there's going to be a lot of quarterback movements this offseason. It's going to be quite fun to have a look at.
Yeah.
But I think you're right on the point that it's going to be hard to sell to not pick a quarterback that's going to play right way, especially what's been going on this year. If you then don't go, right, we're going all in over these next 2 years to try and win, it's a hard sell to play with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
You're asking a lot of patience, I think, from a fan base that has had to deal with some very mediocre times over the last sort of 15 seasons or so. I think, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a lot of fun this season, and by all accounts, he's been fantastic for that locker room and keeping the culture together. And he's shown flashes of Fitz magic as he does every season, in sort of fits and starts, which is good. But in terms of, is he a quarterback that as you're building a franchise that really want to take it to the next level and start to compete and get to the postseason, is he a bridge quarterback that has the capacity to help you get there? You can't really say he definitely is, and I think that
may be better off with someone like an Andy Dalton or Ryan Tannehill, maybe
Teddy Bridgewater, if he could be prized away from New Orleans.
Yeah, but I think what your point about the culture and what Brian Flores has done in itself has been the most impressive thing from this Miami team.
For sure.
I remember how we were laughing at that takes no talent wall at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that has managed to win you 3 games. The team isn't playing for that number 1 spot, and we were all saying how you can't ask NFL players to do that, but how hard they are playing for Flores, for Fitzpatrick, it has been an impressive thing, and that's surely something for Miami fans like yourself to be excited about.
Do you think if you were Brian Flores, you would come out to your team, and I know this probably hasn't happened, but just be like, the GM, the ownership want us to lose. Let's just.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
I see where you're going.
Such a physical sport. If it's the type of thing where you're playing half-heartedly, that's where you get hurt. I don't think you could.
Okay, no, I'm not saying it, but I'm saying do you think the chip on their shoulder that it's clearly they've been set up to fail has kind of made it's had an impact on their season and obviously led them to win a bunch of games which they by all means should have lost.
I think when you sort of couple that with the players that are on the Miami roster at the moment, it's very heavily on, unproven veterans and people that haven't been able to stick on other teams with a mixture of undrafted, rookies and free agents. It's journeymen. It's people looking to win a job. And I think the fact that the roster's in that state, it's basically an all-out competition for every roster spot at the moment. And the players are well aware that if they shine this season, there's absolutely no reason why they can't win themselves a spot on, the new and improved Dolphins when that becomes a thing as well. So I think Flores is likely to have leaned more on that sort of angle in terms of, go out there and prove everyone's here. Everyone in this room is from different walks of life, different backgrounds, has had a different journey to get here. Now that you're here, you've got to make the most of that opportunity. And I think you're seeing that competitive fire in the Dolphins now.
And shout out to that swinging gate touchdown. Because that was
fun.
a thing of beauty.
So fun.
If you compared that to the failed one the Jets had on that weird punt that just ended up being, he basically just
hideous.
Got absolutely.
To what the Colts won against the Pats.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I meant.
I thought I was forgetting another one.
I said the Jets for some reason, but I meant the Colts. But yeah,
probably
the worst play in
trash,
history.
You just assumed it was the Jets.
My bad. But I guess it was completely different, but it was the same sort of general idea, and
it was so fun.
I don't know why they didn't just sort of stack up a bunch of people in the middle to just.
I don't know why we didn't just call a timeout.
Yeah,
you were bamboozled. You were an absolute Matty Hackett absolutely bamboozled you.
This season has been an absolute clusterfuck from top to bottom. To be perfectly honest with you, especially with the expectations we had coming into the year, it has been disgusting to watch, and I am very unhappy.
You were playing a team with nothing to lose,
and all to gain.
Nothing
and actually, lose. Technically, very little to gain. But
nothing to lose and even less to gain. To be perfectly
exactly.
honest.
Like, they have no reason they should be going for it. But
where's it gone wrong for the Eagles then, Slew?
Honestly,
if you had to nail it onto one thing,
it's a one thing I couldn't. I think it's been a whole issue, top to bottom, coaching, playing, and management.
Ooh, okay, the three-way shebang.
Absolutely, especially on the defensive side. I don't understand. I do not understand. I like Jalen Mills as a person. He's a great locker room guy by all accounts, but how much can you see Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills get jump balled by Devontae Parker before changing that up?
Getting mossed. Absolutely mossed.
Very little sense. Like, you're up 28, I think, to 14 at some point, and then we decided to go away from the run. We could have easily run that game out, or at least slowed it down. That Miles Sanders had a good game. He was at 87 yards off like 15 or something carries. That's his breakout game, and then we decided to do a load of short passes rather than it just everything that we decided to go for didn't work. We just keep patting ourselves on the back this year. We've handed extensions to players while we're still fighting for stuff. Lane Johnson, it's good to have him wrapped up, but there's bigger things. We didn't trade for the players we needed to. We could have done with the cornerback. Our top two offensive, not even offensive, picks over the free agency were Malik Jackson and Deshaun Jackson, who have played about 3 games between the pair, and we didn't have a backup plan for Deshaun Jackson, who's 32. I'm not saying you should plan for your players to get injured, but there is a high likelihood in this league. What happens when it goes down? And it was a whole issue last season that we had no speed on the offensive side of the ball, and so Deshaun Jackson comes in. He's supposed to be the man. He goes down, and then what? You don't do anything. It's just. And it's the pick of JJ Arcega-Whiteside as well over a DK Metcalf, or there was, what's he called, the one at the Chiefs?
Mecole Hardman,
who are both field-stretching threats, and then we go decide who was another one. We've got all these big bodies guys who can get 5 yards. It's frustrating.
Yeah, but you say that as if like you thought you would have had Deshaun Jackson.
No.
So
pardon?
You thought you would have had Deshaun Jackson for longer than you have this season.
We would. But then how do you only have one deep threat on a roster?
Yeah, that's true. You need
especially when that was the exact. You pick him, and then you get a Mecole Hardman that can sit behind him, or if he goes down, then he still has that field stretching. Matt Collins is supposed to be our field stretching threat, and he doesn't do anything. All he does is he comes in, and it's a running play.
Yeah, but to be fair, on the Ravens, we literally had Marquise Brown as the only field stretching guy.
Yeah,
and when he was injured, we didn't have that element.
No, you didn't. But you have an incredibly diverse running game. We don't have it. That's what the difference is. And you've got all these. Yeah, we've got Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, but it's the same thing over and over again. We're like how the Ravens were to watch under Joe Flacco, and I don't know how it got to this point from where we were 2 years ago. It's such boring football to watch. There's no deep threat. There's nothing exciting that happens.
No chunk plays.
Exactly. And if you can't chunk plays, we're not good enough, especially with Jordan Howard out, to move the ball consistently on the ground. I'm done with the season. Even if we make the playoffs, then what happens? We get absolutely slapped by whoever we come up against.
Yeah.
There's always next year, Slew.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there will be next year. I'm not.
And next year will happen.
There won't be a next year.
You're not shutting down the franchise because of a loss to the Dolphins. But
I mean, it'd probably be worth it.
It'll be interesting to see where you guys finish this season.
I reckon 7-9, 8-8.
7-9. Isn't it? Don't you think it's great as well how when Devontae Parker, when it hits 9 losses, he just decides he's going to become Randy Moss?
Mate, Devontae Parker, I know we were saying earlier in the season about how he's such a training camp merchant. He's decided to start being a game merchant now, and it's fucking great.
He's just a merchant.
He's now a fully qualified merchant.
But it's like the whole, the training camp merchant stuff. As soon as it doesn't matter, he's sick.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Are you
questioning DVP's character when the chips are down, when the game matters most?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when it... Yeah, I am actually. Yeah,
you are actually. That is what you're saying. All right, so let's move away from Joe putting himself in massively hot water and looking ahead to next week.
Sorry,
so the first game we've got... Pardon?
I said sorry, DVP.
Formal apology.
Okay, yeah. Formal apology, yeah. So the Ravens at the Bills. I'm actually really excited for this one. It's like how I was saying earlier. I don't think the Bills are that team that can get onto that huge lead that's going to be needed against the Ravens. Yes, they'll be good defensively, but so are the Niners. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Ravens' run game either. I think the Ravens win, but I am excited to see what Josh Allen can do against an improved Ravens defense.
I watched the Bills beat the Cowboys in a crowded student pub in London, and that was absolutely fun. I didn't realise how fun the Bills are to watch. I've always obviously had the rivalry tint looking at them, and I've seen them as sort of like a team with a good defense, a quarterback who can make some plays, but not much else other than that. But they were really impressive in all sort of aspects against the Cowboys. I know it's the Cowboys. They've been pretty up and down and inconsistent this season as well. But I think it'll be really cool to see the Bills against the Ravens, and in particular that Bills defense against Lamar.
Before you make your point, Joe, can I just say I have been pumping this Josh Allen train since he got drafted. I've been a big fan of him, and Joe was like,
exactly
but
that.
Exactly
no,
that.
I said he was like the white Cam Newton.
Did you?
Yes, I said that plenty of times.
And I made even the bet that looked horrific last year that in 5 years Josh Allen would be better than Baker Mayfield, which I'm still not sure about, but I am impressed by how much he has come along this year.
He's learnt to throw the ball accurately and not just really far. It's been a revelation.
I'll tell you what, though, one big help for Josh Allen has been John Brown. Genuinely. John Brown is really emerging as, like, he was good for us last year.
Sneaky good.
He's not sneaky good, he's just good. Like, he's genuinely... I think he's...
sneaky way.
I've absolutely missed out. Like, I don't have the stat with me, but I think he was third in receiving yards after catch or something like that.
See, but that's sneaky.
That is sneaky. And I wish I could have a solid stat to quote that on. But, it was one of those, like, fantasy football stats that just pops up on the screen. You're like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, I love the man. He's a real field stretcher. And like you said, this Bills defense is good. It's going to be a nice little challenge for us. I obviously have the Ravens winning. I mean, it's not really a surprise anymore. But I think it could be decently close. I think given how the 49ers game went and that defense, I can imagine it being something like, I don't know, I'm going to give a prediction of 27 to 21.
You said 20 and then stopped yourself and then went back to 20.
No, because I was thinking 30, 20. No, not quite 30. Not against the Bills defense. I'll go 27 to 21. That's what I'll say.
Okay. All right, Matt, who were you picking this one?
Ooh, I am going to go with the Ravens as well, I think. As fun as the Bills were against Dallas, I think the Ravens have just been too good recently. I'm going to say the Bills are going to lose, but I think it'll be fairly close.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think the Bills will have as much success as the 49ers did, taking away our running backs from the game, as Slew very kindly pointed out, except missing on the fact that Lamar Jackson isn't a running back, of course. But
You're still hot and bothered about that, aren't you?
He himself says not bad for a running back, which implies that he thinks he's a running back.
Or he's being ironic.
Nibs. Okay, so the next game, the Chiefs head to Foxborough. Patriots coming off a loss is usually a good excuse to pick them. But the Chiefs' defence looked improved against the Raiders this week, and their offence, again, is nothing you can ever, I don't know, stop, it seems.
It's a weird one, isn't it? I'm kind of teetering with myself on this. Like, my heart says go with the Chiefs, you know? Like, the Pats didn't look great last game. Kind of, and if Deshaun Watson can do that against them, what can Pat Mahomes do, sort of thing? And they're in the same sort of class where I just can't imagine the Pats defense giving away 4 passing touchdowns again.
I know what you mean.
Games
like
in a row.
looking at this objectively, everything looks like the Chiefs are going to win this one.
Yeah,
It's like what we talked about before with Donovan's wanting to call Brady dead. It's like you don't pick against the Pats, especially when they're backed into a corner.
yeah, and 2 weeks in a row, I just don't think it's going to happen. Also, Chiefs defense has shown definite weaknesses in the secondary this year at times. I know they looked good last week, but I think against if any team that Tom Brady could look better or improved against is the Chiefs secondary, I think. So I'm going to take the Pats.
I'm gonna
Matt's raging.
Politely disagree with you there, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
I think I really liked what I saw from the Chiefs' defense, especially the secondary last week. I thought
same.
they were very much improved, and I think this is if you're going to pinpoint a time to play Tom Brady and the Pats, I think this is absolutely it. When they're
coming off a big loss,
coming off a big loss, having
That's historically not the best time to play them.
Well, I beg to differ. I think that once again the Chiefs' offense looked fantastic, and I think that they're going to have a little bit of a shock here, and they're going to beat the Pats. I think Mahomes is going to out-duel the dying wizard Brady, and the Chiefs are going to compound the Patriots' recent misery.
You're a
I'm
wizard,
actually
Patrick.
shockingly. I'm actually going to agree with Matt. Not just shocking because it's agreeing with Matt. But
I'm shocked.
Picking against the Patriots. I don't know. Something just looks like it's going to be a Chiefs win in this one. And I'm probably going to be wrong as they go home spanked. But it just looks too much like a Chiefs win, especially how much they've taken steps forwards on defense, and their offense hasn't taken any steps back because, of course, they haven't.
Hey man,
It's all come together.
Hey man, don't get me wrong. I hope they do lose. I hope the Chiefs do win, but I think predictions wise, I just can't see it.
Especially with you closing the gap on that number 1 seed.
Oh, you love it.
Okay, and
when you say closing the gap, we have the number 1 seed, mate. It's ours.
I meant of our prediction rankings, the more important thing.
Oh yeah, that's true. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, absolutely, and you are forgiven.
Yeah, but Matt's technically closing the gap as well.
After this big week.
Okay, so the final game that we're previewing this week, 2 10-2 teams, 49ers finishing off their 3-game gauntlet, heading to New Orleans to face the Saints. And before this game even happens, these 3 games, the Packers, the Ravens, and then the Saints, was viewed as whether the 49ers are real or not. And I think even the first 2, that has shown that they are here to contend for a Super Bowl this year.
They're the real boys.
Yeah, like we said, that I think the 49ers were outstanding in their last week. Obviously, we saw what they did against Green Bay. I think, given Drew Brees' lack of big play ability and shut up. But given Drew Brees' lack of production at times this year, I think I'm gonna take the 49ers on this one. I just think their defense has got too much
Oomph.
too much oomph about them.
They do have a lovely amount of oomph, to be fair.
They're all oomphed up.
Matt, are you picking the oomphlers?
I'm going to go with the oomphlers as well. I think the 49ers. I think the 49ers are going to boot straight back with a victory over the Saints. The Saints' defense, I think, this season has looked a lot shoddier than it did last year. And I think that the 49ers, in weather conditions that allow their passing game to function, is going to have enough about them to beat the Saints, I believe. And obviously the 49ers defense as well, we've said all season, super impressive, and they're going to be a real challenge for Breeze.
What you saying?
I'm going to make that 3 of 3 predictions. I think the 49ers are going to win this one as well. I think last week's loss to the Ravens, as you were saying, Joe, is about as good a loss as you can have.
Yeah.
Because since that Ravens lost to the Browns earlier, was that October that happened, Joe?
Yeah.
They've looked pretty unstoppable on offense, and since getting Marcus Peters, they've been even more impressive on defense. And to run them as close as they did in bad weather, that looked built for a Ravens performance in Baltimore, I think that's that's arguably the 49ers' most impressive game of the season, even though it was a loss.
Yeah,
I think
that's exactly what I was saying. It's the same sort of, no one came out of that game looking bad, And
I think Saints are a really good team. They're more complete than they probably have been over the last 3 years, where they seem like they should have got to the Super Bowl each of those years. But this 49ers team, I think, is something special. And I think they managed to get the win in what should be, as always, a super loud Mercedes stadium.
Blah Stadium.
Blah Stadium.
That's the noise it makes.
Welcome to Mercedes Blah Stadium.
Okay, so is there any more outtakes from last week?
Outtakes?
Takeaways. Bloody hell, I'm losing my mind.
But one big Eagles loss to a shit team, and he's absolutely capoodled himself.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with Joe just making us wait on edge. It's like when the lights went off in that Ravens Super Bowl. They just took all the wind out of us.
Yeah, side note, Joe was about 2 hours late for the recording of this podcast, and it's really thrown Slew off his game.
Side note, Matt had to make his bed before this.
No, side note, Matt hasn't made his bed yet.
Matt will make his bed.
Why don't you go make your bed, Matt?
I'll make my bed and sleep in it.
Okay, and I think that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @TheDropBack, on Facebook @TheDropBackUK. Look at all of our articles we post on thedropback.com. I've been Sam.
I've been Joe.
And I've been Matt.
And until next time,
Peace.
goodbye.
Peace.